cooking, good looking. My name is Amalie and today we are making a Portuguese soup called Caldo Verde. Caldo Verde is a kale soup made with potatoes and kale and broth. And it's a very traditional soup here in Portugal, and some people even consider it the national dish. The dish has its origin in the northern part of Portugal, from the region called Minho. But very fast it was in the mouth of everyone in Portugal. Today I am gonna challenge the traditional recipe and do my own little twist to it. And for my recipe you need freshly chopped kale, delicious potatoes, a big onion, some white pepper, some Himalaya salt, 2 bay leaves, bunch of garlic, and a cube of chicken broth. Furthermore, you need a piri-piri, some delicious Portuguese chorizo, a bit of fresh herbs, some delicious port wine, and of course, olive oil. We are gonna start off with peeling our potatoes and our onion and garlic. Then we're gonna chop it up and mince the garlic, and then we're gonna put everything in a pot. You might actually think that I'm crazy that I'm saving all of this in a bowl, but that's because these potato shells are amazing if you wanna cook a broth. I do a lot of vegetable stock and broth, and it's the best way of reusing your waste of vegetable. And even the onion here, I'm also saving the onion because that leaves flavors, so many flavors. So the bad part that we normally wouldn't eat of the onion goes inside our little stock bowl here. Remember, this is not a part of the recipe, this is just me saving waste here. I want the pieces of onion to be fairly big actually. I'm using a pretty big pot because there's gonna be a lot of soup here. And we're also gonna cut our potatoes. Nice and big cubes, but not too big, because the smaller cubes, the faster they cook, and then we don't have to wait too long. Potatoes in the pot. Money in the bank. Well, I always smash my garlic because it's much easier to remove the, do you call this the shell, Jorn?
I think so.
I'm gonna chop this as roughly as I possibly can, like this, and put it in the pot. I'm gonna cover the stuff here in the bowl with water. I am also mixing up the recipe a little bit. I'm gonna add 2 bay leaves because I love the flavor of bay leaves, and whoop! And I'm also gonna add a piri-piri. I actually have a little tip here. I'm gonna start trying it, see if it's spicy or not. So this is not spicy at all. I'm gonna add it anyway, because it does have some flavor, but it's just not spicy. Last but not least, I will add a cube of chicken stock. This is gonna cook, simmer and boil. It's actually just gonna boil on the stove for 20 minutes more or less. I'm just gonna bring this to a boil. And I'm actually gonna have a lid on as well. It is so funny how kale normally is something that you can't get people to eat, right? But here in Portugal, they love it because it comes in this creamy, delicious soup, right? I mean, I definitely did not want to eat kale when I was a kid. Here, I'm gonna place the chopped kale, and I'm gonna cover it in ice cold water because that actually makes the texture more doable. So when you eat it, it's not too chewy and it's not too soft. So these are my secret ingredients in this version of my Caldo Verde. It's fresh mint and it is fresh oregano. And together they have this little exotic flavor that you normally get in India. And what I'm gonna do is that the chorizo that normally comes inside the soup to boil in the soup, I'm actually gonna roast it on a pan, and then I'm gonna mix it afterwards with these herbs. That's gonna give the soup a whole new level. This is actually the traditional way of roasting a chorizo. You put in alcohol here, you lit it up, and then you grill the chorizo on each side, and it's so delicious. That is not how we are gonna do it today. We are gonna chop up the chorizo in some nice chunky pieces. And here I would say it's not important that it is so even or pretty or whatever. It has to look medieval and rustic, you know. It cannot look like it was made in a gourmet restaurant. It has to look like it was made home by your grandma. Since this is boiling now, I'm gonna remove the lid a little bit to the side so that some of the moist can leave the building. While we are waiting for the broth to cook in, I will talk a little bit about how I see Caldo Verde, because me and Jon, we have been living in Portugal for 3 years now, and every time I hear the word Caldo Verde, I think of a festival or a party or a big wedding or something, because that is a very celebratory dish and you do eat it a lot here in Portugal. So now that I can start smelling my Caldo Verde in this kitchen, you know, I want to go to the big parties here in Portugal, Santo Antonio or São João, because those are the times where you need What is it, Lara? What is it? No, but really, I just really want to party. When I smell Caldo Verde, I want to party. Our soup has reduced a little bit and it smells amazing. Look at this. Wow. I already can tell that the texture is really nice of this soup. But I'm gonna remove my 2 bay leaves and the chili. I'm using this hand blender. You can also put it in a food processor or whatever kind of tool you have. I find these handy and they don't take up too much space. So that's why I like to use this handy, you know. So maybe you remember that I said that Caldo Verde is a very creamy soup, and maybe you thought, well, you're not using any cream. How is it creamy? That is the potatoes that makes it this creamy. Look, it's so, so, so delicious. I mean, honestly. Now I'm gonna take my kale and I'm gonna make sure that there are not too much water left in it. And then I'm gonna dump it in here. And this water, instead of just throwing it out, it's gonna go into my soon-to-be stock, which again is just leftovers. I'm gonna do a proper video on this one day. It's almost ready to go back on the stove for a couple of minutes, but I am gonna add in a little bit of salt. I would say maybe a teaspoon, but not more, because we have the stock in, the little cube of stock, and that is actually kind of salty. I'm using white pepper for this recipe because my grandmother told me that when you do a white dish, use white pepper. I stir this dish together with some olive oil, and then look at this. Now it starts to look like what a Caldo Verde looks like. You see? It's nice, it's creamy. The only thing we need is to bring it up to heat a little bit while we cook our chorizo. So the soup is just gonna simmer on medium heat now with the lid on, because we don't want it to get more thick. And then on another pan, we are gonna heat up some olive oil. And now that the oil is super hot, we are gonna add our chorizo. So the port wine here is caramelizing it. It smells amazing. You can smell some sugar, you can smell some alcohol, and you can see here, they look like they are covered in sugar now. This is off the heat. I'm gonna take my herbs, splash in, and this smells like heaven. It's so difficult for me to describe this smell because it has like the freshness of the mint, it has the sweetness from the wine, and then you can almost smell like the meat and the fat from the chorizo. This is an amazing little twist to the soup. We're also bringing our soup over here because we are ready to plate. I'm gonna do my little chorizo mixture here in the bottom. The princess. 35 minutes later, we have made all the ingredients into a delicious Caldo Verde, an amazing dish. I think this, from an aesthetic viewpoint, is actually very pretty, and I really expect this to have punch and lots of flavors. And I also hope that my mint and oregano isn't taking over. Moment of truth.
Are you happy?
Oh my God. Honestly, the twist that I made with my chorizo definitely bumped up my flavor palette a little bit. And the fact that the chorizo isn't boiled, but that it has been fried on the pan, gives it so much crunchiness. And crunchiness is something that you can sometimes like a little bit in a Caldo Verde, even though my kale is actually still kind of crunchy, but not super crunchy. I can literally hear the noise of Santo Antonio and see the fireworks of São João right now, because this tastes like Portugal. It's so good. Fuck. If this video made you hungry, leave this video a like. If it made you drool, subscribe to the channel. And if you get a little bit of saudades for Portugal, please leave a comment. Obrigada. Thank you for watching.
And it's the people you love. And as long as you have that, baby, happiness gonna fit like a glove.